Good morning. Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in downtown Corning. We have an exciting show for you this morning. We'll be talking with Major Anita Stewart and Mary Ellen from the Salvation Army of Corning, and we're going to find out how they are doing, how they are helping the community. They're an amazing organization, and I look forward to talking with both of them in just a little bit. On the program tomorrow, we'll have a Corning Council member, Allison Hunt. She'll be joining us right around that same time, 7:15, 7:20. And then on Friday, Eileen Collins, the astronaut. So we've got a great lineup as we hit the middle of the week. As always, if you have any questions, you can contact me. There we go. Reach out, and I actually am going to get to a text message we received yesterday that was fantastic in reference to our $21.25 proposed minimum wage increase. Now, there's been rallies for it. As far as I'm aware, it's not in the budget. Governor Hochul saying $15 is fine. A few groups and unions demanding $21.25. So we're going to hear from a viewer in just a little bit on that, and that's why I put this contact information up. Please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, before we go to our first break, I want to mention a breaking news story that came out yesterday from the sheriff's office, and that's Sheriff Jim Allard. There is a scam going around that I want you to be on the lookout for. The sheriff's office received information that a Village of Bath resident received a phone call stating that there was a warrant out for their arrest. The call then says, as normally a scam does, we need your banking information to take care of this. This is 100% a scam, folks. The sheriff's office does not need anyone's banking information to take care of a warrant of arrest. If you receive a call like this, do not supply any information whatsoever. Don't even do the yes and no's. Hang up, because you don't even want to reply to a question. It could lead to other various scams. The last four numbers of the call change frequently and are sometimes actually numbers for uninvolved persons. I've heard of this. I've never had this happen to me, where you call the number back and it's somebody that didn't make the call. They are hijacking people's numbers just temporarily, and it gets very confusing. These scams are terrifyingly brilliant in how they operate. Please report any scam. If you do receive a call, please let them know at the sheriff's office, whether this is specifically Steuben, but at Chemung, of course, as well. Be alert and do not become a victim. Don't give out information that you know in your gut you should not be giving out over the phone or to really anybody but close family members. And I know it's that time of year where you may be doing your taxes or you've already received your taxes. Be careful on that front, too. A lot of people are hijacking those as well, taking your check, taking your information. So be very, very mindful. If you ever have any questions, call the people directly. Call the sheriff's office. Hang up and call the sheriff's office and say, am I really wanted? Am I really going to be arrested? But call directly. I just wanted to start off with that, not to sound down, but that's a scam alert that I think everybody should be made aware of. So when we come back, we're going to take a look at that text from that very astute viewer. And we've also got a few local things here. Before we get to our guests, we're hopefully going to get to the national level, some interesting presidential race updates, also some interesting New York State budget updates. So just stay with us. We'll try to get to all of it right here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV Big Fox. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I always leave my contact information up, but I do want you to reach out to me, because that's what happened yesterday, and this is a great email, or I should say text, that we received from a viewer. In context, if you missed the last few days, and we had Assemblyman Phil Palmisano on, and we discussed it with him. We had former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. We discussed the budget in general with him, and this idea that Governor Hochul proposing $15 minimum wage for New York workers is mere pennies, according to these organizations that are rallying for $21.25 for minimum wage. And we discussed, what does that mean for all of our small businesses, even larger businesses, at a time when we're very often ranked at the very bottom for business-friendly states. What does a $21.25 minimum wage do? Well, let's look at it. Here I am on Market Street in Corning. You think of a small business that maybe needs somebody else, but they say, well, I can't afford $21.25. I guess there's a job I'm not going to be able to offer on the market. Or maybe it's a business that's struggling to make do anyway, and then you say, hey, it's $21.25, and they can't keep their employees on. It is very, very troubling, and this is from a viewer. They did not give their name. This is a text. Someone has lost their mind. I would argue a lot of people in Albany have lost their mind. Small businesses and a few larger ones can't handle that. They will close their doors. The people working for them will be out of work. They will either sign up for unemployment or public assistance, which will be an overburden for us in New York. And think about that, too. When it says, you'll close your doors, the people working for them will be out of work. That's absolutely going to happen. But you also have to add to the person that's maybe worked at a small business for 20 years. They're not making the $21.25. Now, let's say they get it, but the person that's been there 6 months is now making equal to them. There's so many, I don't even think you could say unintended consequences. I don't think these groups and these organizations care. I think it's all about perhaps getting votes. It's not about what's actually best for the state or what's keeping us as a state solvent. Continuing, though, and if some chance businesses can stay open, prices will have to go up on everything to cover the raise and pay. Absolutely. Think about restaurants. Think of the prices that you will be paying when every employee in there gets $21.25 an hour. A friend of mine has an expression that is 100% correct. You won't have more money. You will just handle more money. And that meaning the person receiving that $21.25. That's a great expression. Absolutely. But this is just another example, and one that we have so frequently here, of New York, specifically Albany, obviously, not caring about the back end of all this. It's all about that instant gratification of the rally cheers or what they will believe to be more voters. And at the end of the day, these are the kind of decisions that are really hurting us. And when we come back, we'll discuss more on that with Stuart Cousins saying the bail issue, they are very close. So I guess we may not discuss that. Well, I got some other New York issues too, but that's essentially what she's saying. It's very close to an agreement. What that agreement will ultimately end up looking like worry some of us, scare some of us. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I mentioned quickly before our guests join us, this bail reform issue, as it says here, Stuart Cousins says they are very close. It really isn't any simple answer, she said. Part of it, quite frankly, is a mischaracterization of what our laws have done. The politicalization of, criminal justice reform. We do not want to criminalize poverty or low-level offenses, and yet we need to make sure that there is clarity about the law in the judicial system. And I know we talked about it yesterday with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. It's very interesting how they say, never mind what you see with your own eyes. Trust us that this isn't really as bad when we all know the number one issue is safety in this state. Well, safety and the economy. So we've got our guests here. I'm going to take another short break so we could get right to them. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program where we have an interview. And today we've got two representatives from the Salvation Army of Corning. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's so great to have you on because we have a lot of updates that we need and how we can help, because unfortunately this is a tough time for all communities really across the state and across the nation. So are you seeing an uptick in need?
Yes.
Bad.
Very much so. And an uptick in homeless people
Yes.
coming in.
Oh my goodness. So explain a little bit, maybe behind the scenes, what your day to day looks like, both of you, when dealing with the community and helping the community.
Well, day to day looks like opening up our pantry that we service the community 5 days a week with whatever groceries that we have on site, as well as the generous donations from Wegmans grocery store that we give to the community. Also, we are available to assist with rental assistance, housing, and we make a lot of referrals so that we're working within a network and collaborating with other community locations to help those that are in need. Also, we provide clothing if we have it on site for those that have needs.
So it sounds like you're obviously very busy. What drives you every morning when you wake up to say, this is a community I love, this is a community that needs our help?
Well, I'll go first.
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
it's a calling because I'm an ordained minister,
Mhm.
and I have been for 40 years. You know the story. My husband and I, who just recently passed in November, we were called, we believe by God, to be ministers in the Salvation Army. And the Salvation Army is a church first, and then
Right.
all of the other programs follow out of that. We are Methodist in our theology, and so we have regular services on Sunday school, church, and so it's the love we have for the Lord that helps us to respond to those in need.
Yeah.
It's an automatic response.
And for me, I retired 14 years ago, and I joined the Salvation Army Board, and I just feel strongly about their commitment to serving the public. And I'm also, what I do now is I'm the volunteer director, and I've done that for about 12 years of the children's program.
Wow.
And so I think volunteerism is really important,
Mhm.
and people can find their niche, what they're interested in, and give back.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we've been talking a lot on the show lately about, I don't know if you saw the polls, but like a lack of faith and community, or a lack of having a passion for the community. And that's why I think the Salvation Army is so important, why people should get involved, because you are about building up the community and helping the community.
And there's a lot of people that are in need.
Mhm.
They're kind of like the hidden people.
Right.
And not even so much hidden anymore, because people will call and say that, they have a job which they just lost. They have an eviction notice, and they find themselves in positions that they never thought they'd be in.
Do you find for some people it is difficult to go in and ask for help?
You can tell,
Yeah.
they're very
Yeah,
hesitant, and they need it, the help. They have children, but it's something that they don't really want to do. But and we say to them, well, any of us at any time could be in that position.
Sure.
So
And I know the Salvation Army has kind of become synonymous with Christmas and the bell ringing. Now, so let me ask you, and maybe you don't want to say the answer to this, is it your favorite time of year or your least favorite because you're so busy?
I love Christmas.
Yeah, okay. Not the holiday, the season.
My husband was big on
He was,
Yeah.
he
the
was.
kettles.
Yeah.
He was nicknamed the Kettle King because he saw that as an opportunity to meet people, and he would sing, even though he was tone deaf. He would sing and have a great time, and he had a wonderful relation and camaraderie with the people that would pass by. I enjoy it, but it just gets to be so hectic
I'm sure.
with making sure we provide the needs. But it is our favorite time, our busiest time.
And you
as
make
well.
such a difference at that time and all year. But with Christmas season, you see it maybe because you're more aware of it being
Yes.
Christmas season.
It's amazing, and
It
the
is.
people that they're really grateful, and they really are needy, in terms of asking for help. And my favorite part is the gifts, being
Yeah.
able to give back to them, like all the things with the children, and they're struggling families.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do the best for their children, and so we try to do the best for them.
You do. And now, we mentioned the bell ringing, but how do you fundraise through the rest of the year? Through donations? Is that the major way that we can help?
Through donations, any foundations or legacies that people leave in their wills to us, but mostly through donations. The Christmas income represents 3/4 of the budget, so that's why we put such an emphasis and thrust into raising those funds. But we are always in need, because that's the main source of our income, of donations.
And now I know you're always in need of volunteers, but you're also currently, and this seems to be a trend on the program with people coming in, you guys are hiring as well, right?
Yes, we're looking for, we just filled the position of office manager, administrative assistant. We're
Okay.
looking for a social services coordinator to help us assist with some of the various needs in the community to help those that are in need.
So what's the best way if someone, maybe that's their calling, social services, how should they contact you?
They would go online,
Okay.
look at the Salvation Army website, and they would pull the button bar down, and it would say jobs available, job opportunities, and look for Corning, and they would see the jobs available.
And Mary Ellen, one thing I wanted to ask you, because I think we've become almost focused on it when you think of the Salvation Army more, you do think of the kids programs. That's been a huge success. Has it been since the beginning when you were there?
It was before I
Yeah.
came. I think the kids program was probably 20. I think it's been in existence for 20 years. Different format.
Okay.
Right now, it's licensed, registered daycare. We do after school,
Okay.
and then we also do a summer full day program. So there are openings for that if people are interested, and also we're looking for additional youth leaders for the summer,
Oh,
and
sure.
that's a full time job for 6 weeks.
Now, what's the best way if someone, maybe they're working but they do want to volunteer? Just before we wrap up here, what is the best way to contact you on that? But also, what does a volunteer position look like?
Well, they can people who want to volunteer can volunteer in many different ways. They can volunteer for their food pantry. We need help with the clothing because we have clothes that come in and then they all need to be sorted and then so we have a big need there. There is always opportunities on Sunday there's Shepherd's Table, and we need either groups or individuals that want to make a meal for about 30-40 people and then
Just to help with the distributing.
Okay.
distribute it. It's about a
of the
2-hour
meals.
commitment, 3-hour
Yeah.
commitment on a Sunday afternoon,
Okay.
once a month.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds, and then people will also volunteer to come in and do like a special presentation to children.
Oh,
If
okay.
people if they're have a skill that they really love to do, and so we're always looking for people that come in and do that too on a
Yes.
short term, just a visiting kind of
Yeah.
basis.
And that's a
We have
wonderful
that.
segue with the kids and volunteers because we're looking for people who play instruments as well,
Oh, okay.
who would be able to give lessons to the kids.
Okay.
We want to invest in them in creative arts, drama, and musical lessons. We have some brass instruments.
Okay.
We could use some stringed instruments, some guitars, and
Yeah.
some folks that would give lessons. That'd be a great help.
Well, and so it sounds like if someone's willing to volunteer or looking to volunteer, there's something for everyone,
Yes.
really, to find that their niche.
Absolutely.
What an amazing opportunity. One other thing before we go, you mentioned the church service. What should people know about that if they want to start attending and find a new church?
They should know that, of course, we're Wesleyan Methodist, and also we have services on Sunday at 9:30 for the adult Sunday school class,
Okay.
coffee and Danish, and then we have our morning service at 11 o'clock,
11 o'clock.
followed by the Shepherd's Table at
Okay.
4.
So right on Denison Parkway.
Yes.
And one last time, if people want to get involved on any of these ways we talked or need help, how should they reach you?
They should go online and look at the Salvation Army website.
Okay.
The Corning Corps is listed under the Salvation Army. They can also go to our Facebook page.
Okay.
Corning has a Facebook page. And they can also call our local number, 607-962-4681.
Okay. Well, perfect.
And
Thanks so
ask
much.
for either of us.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. You guys
Thank
do such
you.
amazing work that I wanted the community to know. So thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Frank.
Frank.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. And I want to thank MA Neal Financial Services for bringing us our last interview. And I want to specifically thank our guests, Major Nita Stewart and Mary Ellen Moynihan. I appreciate both of them being on the program. The Salvation Army does so much amazing work. And maybe you think, well, Frank, you keep bringing this up, but I think many of us were bothered by the news story that people are giving up on religion, are losing faith or losing interest in their communities. Well, that's two things right there that the Salvation Army takes care of specifically. So don't fall into that trap of really fitting that media narrative. I don't trust polls. I would also say I think there's an agenda there to overhype those numbers. But if you want to get involved, look, yesterday we had former congressman, but also Steuben County Republican Chairman Joe Sempolinski on, so we could find out how we get involved on the political side of things in the community. And also, because there's a level there of patriotism, which was another lower number when it came to that polling, that people aren't as patriotic. So we had how we can get involved in the community through Joe on the political side of things, and now on the religious and community side of things, we had these representatives from the Salvation Army of Corning. They do amazing work. So if you want to volunteer, contact them. But also, if you need help, these are trying times. As a matter of fact, and I wasn't going to jump to this story, but talk about a perfect segue, that, of course, not the story. There is a report out that 70% of Americans are feeling financially stressed. This is coming from CNBC. So take it with a little bit of grain of salt, just in the sense that it doesn't necessarily... It's that pesky inflation. It's always a very sugar-coated words as compared to maybe different presidents being in office and maybe receiving a little bit more of the brunt of the blame here. But 70% of Americans feel financially stressed, according to this poll. Again, not the biggest fan of polls, but there's something to it. Because think of how many times you've had the conversation with your friends, your neighbors, or maybe just inside your own head. What am I going to do? These prices are too high due to inflation. As a matter of fact, nearly 60% of respondents cited inflation as the main contributor to their financial stress. And stress, I think, is a very important word, because how many of us, again, having that conversation with loved ones, family members, friends, or if just with yourself, do I purchase this week? Can I afford it this week? As we watch the various price adjustments go on almost daily. Now, that's the number one reason. The inflation is a stress on people, but 70% of Americans, that's so troubling. And it's later on in a different article that I found, but 58% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Now, this is not a knock on people that are doing this or that have financial stress, because I think we're all feeling it. Not everybody lives paycheck to paycheck, but 58% of us do. So you add that all in, and it's a stress. And that's why I think, to just tie it back in with this interview, whether you need help because of those financial stresses or whether you want to build yourself up and uplift yourself through volunteer work, which it does that. There's no question in my mind. Helping your community members in need, it's a great de-stressor. So I wanted to mention that article to you, and I didn't know I was going to do it right at that exact moment. So what did I do with my checklist? Anyway, I jumped around so much that I threw myself off. Because we do have to come up on a short break, but I thought maybe I had another more minute. From an announcement we made yesterday where the national emergency was ended when it came to COVID finally. That happened just yesterday. President Biden signing that bill. We get today from, there we are, at SUNY schools, the vaccine mandates have been dropped. This is, I think, a move in the right direction, another sign of normalcy, because schools, especially public schools, not necessarily universities, but public schools, taking a hardline stance. Many question, was it the teachers union? Listen, I get that. There was a lot of questions there about the shutdowns for how long kids were out, but this, I think, a move in the right direction. Yes, now I found my sheet, if you saw me struggling there. But this, again, a move in the right direction, and brings me to a point made by our Congressman, Nick Langworthy. Nick Langworthy sent out a release yesterday about COVID, and it's a different side of it. It's more the financial end, or the more government involvement in COVID. And I wanted to get to this quote. Let me just see if I can find it. Yeah, okay, in just a moment. So what happened is House Committee on Oversight and Accountability Chairman James Comer and our representative Nick Langworthy, or many of our representatives, launched an investigation following reports indicating the Department of Health and Human Services misallocated COVID-19 relief funds intended to help low-income hospitals. So they sent a letter to the secretary, and this is a piece of that. The Committee on Oversight and Accountability is investigating recent reports of misallocated COVID-19 relief funds intended to help low-income hospitals. This affects us, obviously, in more rural areas. Instead of helping hospitals most in need, nearly $17 billion of COVID-19 relief fund went to hospitals with reported profits of more than $53 billion, while $35 billion went to hospitals that reported a loss of almost $130 billion. So why, and it is this misallocated funding, why something that was set up to help ends up helping, and this happens so often, so frequently, when you have government involved, ends up helping those in the least need as compared to those that are in dire straits. They went on to continue after this quote, "It is crucial that we understand how the Department of Health and Human Services distributed these funds to hospitals that did not need it, while hospitals in need received minimal benefits. We request documents and communications to assist the committee's oversight of Health and Human Services administration of COVID-19 relief funds to low-income hospitals." So that directly affects us in more rural areas, so I wanted to highlight that letter, and hopefully we'll get updates on that. I know that's sometimes a very slow process, but something that I think is crucial to understand where our money went, because we've talked about this in the past. I know so many of you talked about it. When you think about stimulus, you think about all the ways government was handing out money during COVID and since even after COVID. Where has the money went? Was it always in our best interest as taxpayers to give money to certain groups or certain organizations? No, obviously not. I think an example too, I got a great email or text not that long ago about what about the infrastructure? We were promised all this amazing infrastructure projects, and we haven't seen that either. I received that way back, one of the earliest first shows. So again, a lot to cover there, and I just kind of went through quite a few different topics, trying to tie them all together, but we still have plenty of more coming up in just a little bit. As always, you can contact me if you have any comments on the stories we've been bringing up. If you missed the best way to get a hold of the Salvation Army of Corning, please contact me. I would love to hear from you and help you out. Also, something I brought up the first show, or maybe the second, if you're having an issue locally in a political sense where, this park is in a bad shape and kids, it may be dangerous, or what about the graffiti, or what about this project that's been promised forever? If you contact us, I can't always promise, but I will try to get someone on that's a quote-unquote expert. Maybe it's your town supervisor. Maybe it's your mayor. Maybe it's some other completely different entity other than politics. We want this, again, going back to the community, we want this to be a forum for the community. So please contact me. Now, with that being said, I have to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Got those two levels mixed up. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street. It's a beautiful day out there. If you walk by, please wave. As you see, we've had one wave this morning. Yesterday on the program with Joe Sempolinski, and it seems like we've talked about this frequently with many of our guests, former Congressman Tom Reed, two former congressmen, talking about the issue of China. You know, I have mentioned it a lot on the program outside of our guest interviews. And Marco Rubio reiterating what we've been saying. And if you're new to the program or you missed the times that I've talked about it, what the theory is that China is attempting to become the world's superpower, is attempting to take over and be the world leaders. We're seeing it more and more, whether it's with Taiwan, with these threats that are very troubling, whether we see it with their conversations with Russia. And the former Congressman Tom Reed brought this up in his interview. There was a document that was released where China and Russia, in that order, already believe they have taken over as a superpower, that they have us as Americans in checkmate. now, as the former congressman said, he believes we're still in check, that we still can get out of this. I believe Joe Semplinsky somewhat reiterated that yesterday, and Marco Rubio did a piece on this, an op-ed for, where was it here? An op-ed for Defense News. Oh, there it is, right on the top of my screen, for Defense News, where he said, if you look at it, China is on track to have more than 440 ships in 5 years, while the U.S. Navy is on track to have just 291. So when you see this aggression, or at least this poking the bear a little bit, now is not the time, of course, to displace our naval power. In other words, China is on a fast track to displace America as the world's dominant naval power. That's the way it was worded, calling the U.S. woefully underprepared. Too few people will fully understand or appreciate the fact that our ships do more than defend allies and partners from invasion. They also guarantee freedom of navigation on the open seas. I'm glad that Marco Rubio is speaking out on this. He said, for decades, the U.S. Navy has eliminated piracy, prohibited extortion, and ensured that virtually every country on the planet has the ability to trade, and has asked nothing in return, which you can, yes, that's true. You can also think about that with many issues that we get involved in as a country and help, which is a good thing to help. But there's not always a lot in return, as you saw with that report. Egypt rumored to have given some ammunition to Russia, and Egypt, an ally of ours, essentially saying we got to keep this on the down low. We don't want to hurt our relationship with the West. Same kind of thing here. We don't ask for anything in return. But he said that will end if Beijing uses a more powerful force to overturn our maritime supremacy. He said just one of China's 13 naval shipyards has greater productive capacity, than all 7 of the U.S. shipyards combined. And he slammed President Joe Biden for requesting a budget for the Navy and Marine Corps in 2024 that is 2% below inflation. So actually cutting back on these very, very important avenues. In other words, the White House wants to cut the Navy's funding when it's already losing ground. It makes no sense when the production of the Columbia-class submarine is 10% behind schedule and that of the Virginia-class submarine is significantly behind. He concluded, because I just wanted to highlight the fact that this is something we've brought to you frequently on Frankly Speaking, but also our guests. But he concluded, President Theodore Roosevelt once said, a good Navy is not a provocation to war, it is the surest guarantee of peace. So, if so, we are setting ourselves up for conflict. That needs to change. And I agree with Rubio on many different levels on that exact piece. We can't cut back. Now's the time. I think a lot of people don't take this threat from China seriously. Hopefully Taiwan will open their eyes a little bit of this provocation, this poking. But I'm not sure. It seems like many in Washington are taking it too lightly. So it's good to see that piece from the senator. Let's take a short break. We'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us. Back just in time to wrap things up here on Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody who joined us. I'd like to thank Major Nita Stewart and Mary Ellen from the Salvation Army of Corning for being our guest. What an amazing organization. And I hope that you'll be able to get involved or donate or, and of course, as always, if you need help, contact them. Tomorrow on the program, we'll be talking with Allison Hunt. She is a Corning City Councilwoman, and she is also running for Steuben County Legislature. So she's going to join us right around 7:20 tomorrow. And then on Friday, Eileen Collins, the astronaut, of course, from our area. I think that's going to be a fun interview because there's been major news about NASA sending all these astronauts to the moon. We'll pick her brain on it. I better do a little research on their names. I drew a blank there. But I hope everybody has a great day. Let me get to the contact information one last time. If there's anything you think I missed on the program today, or if you'd like to find out more about the Salvation Army, if you'd like to be a guest on the program, that's the general number to reach us here. We can get everything in motion to try to help you out as best as we can. And I think that covers it for us today. Boy, that was a fun show. I'll leave that up here right towards the end. But I hope you don't mind, but we covered everything from international, statewide, local. I think we got everything covered. We've got some really amazing guests coming up in the next few weeks as well. So as always, just make us a part of your routine if you don't mind. And I thank you for everybody who said the kind words that have made this a part of their routine. Join us every morning at 7 a.m. right here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, where we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on beautiful Marcus Street in Corning. How nice is that when we have guests in here and you get to see people go by, drive by, ride their bikes, just out for a nice walk because it's a beautiful morning. So I do think that's a really exciting part to this program, bringing it back again to the local, to the community. So that does it for me today. We will be back tomorrow morning, as I said, starting at 7 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Have a great day, everyone.